so good to be with you guys this morning. That worship was incredible and it leads perfectly onto my preach, so thank you so much to the band. So for those of you who don't know me, I think I know most of you. My name is Kat. I've been in the church now probably for about 18 years. I'm married to Ricky. We have 2 kids who are up in Blaze. And Monday to Thursday, I work as an architect's assistant for an architectural firm in Edenbridge. And every morning at about 10:30, we stop to do the Radio 2 pop quiz. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it. We have varying scores. Sometimes we do really well, sometimes not so well. But all of us in the team, we do it collectively, and we all bring a sort of unique area of music genre, if you like, that we are better at. And for me, my definite area of expertise, although I'd like to add I'm not great at any of it, is the early 2000s pop. So it was around the time I was about 15 or 16. So if you ask me a question about boy band or some R&B maybe, Craig David, Justin Timberlake, Destiny's Child, that kind of thing, then I'm likely to know the answer. Which is why, when I was given Psalm 98 to preach on this morning, I knew exactly what I would title my preach. I don't know if anybody remembers the 2000s song, Let's Get Loud by J-Lo. I think we've got a clip of it.
Let's get loud, let's get loud. Turn the music up to hear that sound.
Maybe some of you are familiar with it, maybe it's completely lost on some of you, but I think you might remember that my preach is now called Let's Get Loud. I thought actually about having it playing as I approached the stage, like a wrestler does when he approaches the stage, but I thought maybe I would be nervous enough, so maybe not. So with the title of Let's Get Loud, Psalm 98, I think it goes without saying that it is a psalm of praise that we're looking at this morning. As we've learned recently over the last few months, we have covered psalms of praise and psalms of lament, psalms of joy and psalms of sadness, of celebration and of anger, of questioning and of declaration. The authors of the psalms, like us, they had good days and bad days, ups and downs, faith-filled moments and doubt-filled moments. And so today, whilst this psalm focuses on what is good in the world, I want to recognise right from the start that I realise that there are painful, difficult situations going on in the lives of our congregation. As a church, over the past year, we have covered some of these psalms of lament. Joseph came a few months ago and he preached to us and he had us crying out, "Why, Lord?" for some of the really challenging, difficult situations in our lives. The psalmists teach us not to ignore the pain in our lives, but at the same time to be eternal in perspective, looking forward to the return of Jesus and lifting our eyes above our earthly circumstance. So a song that we sang this morning, actually, which I think sums it up quite well, it's a new one by Brandon Lake, and it says, "Sometimes you've got to dance through the darkness, sing through the fire, praise when it don't make sense. Sometimes you've got to stare down the giant, worship from the lion's den. Sometimes you've got to shout from the mountain, louder in the valley, trusting that he's going to get you there. Sometimes you've got to welcome the wonder, wait for the answer, worship with your hands in the air." So today we will praise, irrespective of our circumstances. Psalm 98 is helpfully split into 3 sections. So I want to thank the author for giving me a lovely 3-part preaching plan. But just to confuse you, I am going to cover the first section first, then I'm going to skip to the 3rd section and then go back to the middle section. So instead, basically, of going past, present, future, I'm going to take you on a time traveling journey. I'm going to go back into the past, then we're going to go forward into the future, and then we're going to land back in the present. So let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. I'm going to read Psalm 98 verses 1 to 3. Maybe it should be up on the screen, but you can turn to it as well if you want to. "I will sing to the Lord a new song, for he has done marvelous things. His right hand and his holy arm have worked salvation for him. The Lord has made known his salvation. He has revealed his righteousness in the sight of the nations. He has remembered his steadfast love and faithfulness to the house of Israel. All the ends of the earth have seen the salvation of our God." Did you know that you can review almost anything on the internet? And when asked, the internet also pulls up all manner of hilarious reviews. So there was one guy who left an incredibly detailed review about his local post office. He praised the delightful whiff of industrial floor cleaner upon entry and the thrilling unpredictability of the wait time, which he called a game of patience that would rival any reality show. And then somebody else, and I don't know why you would need a review of your local rubbish bin, but they left a review anyway saying they raved about the bin's sturdy exterior, spacious capacity, but then they downgraded it when a seagull disrespected the sanctity of the bin. I don't know if any of you remember a good friend of ours, Toby Elliott. Well, I found out recently that he left a Google review for a bus stop. I mean, I don't know why you'd need it. Here are a couple of my favourites coming up on the slides. Hopefully you can read them. They're a bit ridiculous. During my week in Budapest, I was hospitalised with COVID and mugged at gunpoint, but eating this food was definitely a low point. This one here, can I just say that I'll be reordering them in every colour, because here's me rolling and sliding down a mountain because I was too scared to get up. My leggings did not rip, not even a little bit, and I got stuck on rocks and trees. I mean, would you go to that fast food restaurant or would you buy those leggings? I think those leggings are really something, actually. We all like stories and we need reviews when we're deciding to purchase something or book somewhere or even which school we're going to send our child to. Ideally, personal experience is best, isn't it? If we have been to that restaurant before, we've purchased that item before, we're going to know whether or not we can trust it again. Next up, I think, would be personal recommendation. If we know somebody who we trust who has purchased something or has been to that restaurant, then we're going to know if it's good or not. This is how influencers work, right? So they post on social media, the general public follow them, they learn to trust them, they learn to like them, and then they recommend something, and all of a sudden it's sold out everywhere. And then finally, ridiculous online reviews actually can sometimes be quite helpful. Well, the beginning of Psalm 98 is essentially a review, a testimony, the author's experience of God. The psalmist begins by remembering what God has done, which is essentially, he puts it, marvelous things, incredible stories that have become the legacy of God's people. Presumably, he is remembering Abraham, who was called to leave everything familiar and trusted God when all he had was a promise. God then made a covenant with him, promising a future that seemed completely impossible. Abraham's faith became a foundation, and his story lives on as a legacy of God's people. Next, we have the miraculous birth of Isaac, a moment that seemed laughable at Sarah's age, but God followed through, showing that his promises never fail, no matter how improbable they may seem. Then there was Joseph, sold by his brothers into slavery and then wrongfully imprisoned. But God used Joseph's trials to save an entire nation from famine, reminding us that even in dark times, he is working a greater plan. Then came the Exodus, a rescue from Egypt that seemed impossible. God's people were up against the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army bearing down on them from behind, felt trapped and hopeless, yet God made a way when there was no way. And then later in the wilderness, when they hungered, God provided manna from heaven. Then we remember the fall of Jericho's wall, where God moved in power through obedience, tearing down what was impenetrable. Then we read about Gideon, who vastly led an outnumbered army to victory. And then, of course, David, who defeated Goliath with only a slingshot, showing that he had a trust that was bigger than fear. In each of these moments, God worked salvation, revealed his righteousness, and remembered his steadfast love and faithfulness. These stories show how God has always been active, always been for us. We praise because we remember his track record, and we lift our voices to the one who has proven himself faithful from generation to generation. Presumably, you are all familiar with many of those stories, and I think you will know throughout that, what I was just saying, it just seemed like there were so many impossible moments, so many crisis moments, if you like, so many moments where they would have been crying out, "Why, God?" But what the author is doing here is getting us to lift our eyes above to see the goodness of God from generation to generation. to see a bigger picture, to grasp a great big view of God. Dan spoke a few weeks ago from Psalm 78, and he spoke about speaking stories of God from generation to generation. And it goes without saying that the author of Psalm 98 wouldn't have been present for all of these list of God's marvelous things, but he has clearly been told them. He's read the reviews, if you like, and he has seen the evidence and believed in awe and wonder. Matt Redman says in his book Mirable, real love cannot exist on a diet of apathy or a small view of God. Everyone who's ever lived a big life for God started off with a big dose of revelation, a great big view of who he is. Hudson Taylor, a missionary to China in the 19th century, was born into a Christian family, but then he drifted away. But when he was about 17, he stumbled across a tract that he found in his dad's library. And he felt suddenly overwhelmed by God's love and grace, which led him to surrender his life to Christ and go on to live a big missionary life for God. A tract, a testimony, a personal experience, a review of God in a person's life led him to have his own great big dose of revelation, which led to a mighty life sold out for God. Testimony is so important. Stories are important. And they're important not just because they remind us of what God has done, but also because of what kind of God he is. Verses 1 to 3 paint a picture of a God who has always been fighting for us, pursuing us, running after us. The psalm talks about what God has done, worked, made known, revealed, remembered. He has been an active, working presence in our lives. It talks about God's right hand and holy arm, which literally speaking show a hands-on God fighting our cause through generations, a God who is strong, skillful, and sits in authority, a God who protects. But this first section also contains a prophetic element. As the Psalms are in the Old Testament, we know that the Messiah has not yet come. Yet it says his right hand and holy arm have worked salvation for him. We have the privilege of reading these verses and knowing the fuller picture, the progression of God's story. We know the bold, brave, and sacrificial love of our Saviour. He journeyed into the thick of the fight to rescue us, the object of his affection. How much more, therefore, can we sing a new song for all the marvellous things that he has done? This first section gives us God's track record, his track record of steadfast love, faithfulness, righteousness, and salvation. It says at the beginning, "I'll sing to the Lord a new song, for he has done marvelous things." And then towards the end, it is mirrored again to form almost like a sort of bookend, where it says, "Let the hills sing for joy together before the Lord, for he comes to judge the earth." This time we have a song, another song, not this time for what he has done, but for what he will do. This is where we jump into the future. At first thought, Judgment Day is a daunting prospect. Singing for joy because of a day of judgment sounds almost a little bit odd. And I think if you asked any of your friends what they thought about Judgment Day, if indeed they believed in it, I don't think joyful would be one of the words that they used. So why are we singing for joy on this day? Psalm 98, verses 8 to 9, says, "Let the hills sing for joy together before the Lord, for he comes to judge the earth. He will judge the world with righteousness and the peoples with equity." We're singing for joy on this day because of his track record. As mentioned earlier in the psalm, if God has a track record of faithfulness, steadfast love, righteousness, and salvation, then we can be sure that this is how we will be treated on Judgment Day. If God has always been running after us to the point that he sent his son to die for us, then we can be assured in a God who will treat us with righteousness and equity. Equity is a fantastic word. In fact, I had to look it up to check that I understood it fully, and it revealed to me more about who God is. It's so much more than equality. Rather, it means justice. It means total inclusivity. It means recognizing and adjusting the treatment or resources based upon individual needs to achieve a fair outcome. It means a gospel, a salvation that is for everyone, for every tribe, every tongue, and every nation. And then this, all of the aforementioned, should lead us to praise, to get loud. A few weeks ago, my 6-year-old boy had a friend round for a play date. I don't know if you've ever been in the presence of 2 6-year-old boys, but it is pretty wild and quite loud. There were footballs kicked into neighbours' gardens. There was Lego emptied into every inch of his bedroom. There were Nerf bullets found down sofa cushions. It was crazy. So you could just imagine how excited he was when I told him that his friend was coming back. Now, nothing's louder, I don't think, than a 6-year-old boy on the morning before his friend is coming back. He was just compelled to move, to throw himself on the floor, to dance, to shout, to sing, to just be completely wild. And nothing else mattered. Getting dressed, brushing his teeth, eating breakfast, they were all futile tasks. All that mattered was moving and dancing and jumping because his friend is coming over. And this is us, here in this present tense, knowing his track record, knowing how good he has been, but knowing that it doesn't end there. There is more to come. He is coming back. So we praise now because of love and gratitude, but also because of a future hope, which leads us into the present. I'm going to read the middle section of Psalm 98, verses 4 to 8. Make a joyful noise to the Lord, all the earth. Break forth into joyous song and sing praises. Sing praises to the Lord with the lyre and the sound of melody, with trumpets and the sound of the horn. Make a joyful noise before the King, the Lord. Let the sea roar and all that fills it, the world and those who dwell in it. Let the rivers clap their hands. Let the hills sing for joy together. Physical worship with your whole body and soul connects ye to your Lord. It brings him the worship that he deserves, and it changes you, and it is vital to your Christian walk. Your tongue can speak many words, but praise is what it was made for. The verses say, all the earth should make a joyful noise. So sing loud, whether it is a melody or a din, because he has called you to do it. And it is beautiful to him who made you. And this kind of praise, this reckless joy kind of praise, is a weapon too. When Israel marched around Jericho and then blew their trumpets in praise, the walls came tumbling down. When Paul and Silas praised in prison, there was an earthquake and their chains were released, and it brought about salvation. Worship is catching. It's missional. When we're loud in worship, people take notice. I don't know if you've noticed the difference between hymns sung at a non-Christian wedding and worship songs sung at a Christian wedding. The difference is that the people of God are singing to a living God, and everybody there knows it. I mean, it's obvious. It causes people to stare, to question. Sometimes it can cause people to feel a bit uncomfortable maybe, but one thing is for certain, it can't go unnoticed. The sound of true worship is missional, and it's a declaration to the world. In the same way, when the earth cries out to God, people notice. The beauty in a sunrise, the roar of the sea, the song of the birds, or at the moment, the colours in the trees. Worship is missional, whether it comes from the material earth or it comes from the people of God. God's praises are catching. John Wesley said to his people, sing lustily and with good courage. Beware of singing as if you were half dead or half asleep, but lift up your voices with strength. Be no more afraid of your voice now, nor more ashamed of it being heard than when you sung the songs of Satan. In addition, though, trumpets, harps, horns, they might not be something that we all have easy access to. I haven't seen any here this morning. So therefore, it might be pretty hard for us to play out. According to Spurgeon, these were literally the instruments most in use among the Jews. and a spiritual signification has been attached to each instrument. Spurgeon says, they seem to me to represent the cardinal virtues, the harp implying prudence, the psaltery justice, the trumpet fortitude, and the cornet temperance. I find this really interesting because actually what could be more metaphorically loud in today's culture than these? Prudence, being practically wise and making good choices, judging the right action to take in any given situation. Justice, treating others fairly and respecting their rights. Fortitude, maintaining strength and resolve in the face of challenges. And temperance, exercising self-control and moderation, especially in desires and pleasures. They are so countercultural that they shout praise to God. A life lived in the Spirit, displaying these virtues, is a worshipful life. So now we're going to draw to a close. I'm going to ask the band to come back up. And as we draw to a close, here in the present, having been reminded of the goodness of God, let us be encouraged to sing a new song as a response of a fresh revelation of God's grace. Let us continue to remember to ourselves, but also to others, all that he has done. Sharing our stories, our 5-star reviews of God, and building faith and pointing to a future hope, to an eternity spent with God, who has pursued us throughout all history. And let's get truly loud in worship and in our lifestyle to bring him the praise that he deserves, because he is worthy of all of our praise. I'm going to finish by reading this psalm through, all the way through. I'll sing to the Lord a new song, for he has done marvelous things. His right hand and his holy arm have worked salvation for him. The Lord has made known his salvation. He's revealed his righteousness in the sight of nations. He has remembered his steadfast love and faithfulness to the house of Israel. All the ends of the earth have seen the salvation of our God. Make a joyful noise to the Lord, all the earth. Break forth into joyous song and sing praises. Sing praises to the Lord with the lyre and the sound of melody, with trumpets and the sound of the horn. Make a joyful noise before the King, the Lord. Let the sea roar and all that fills it, the world and those who dwell in it. Let the rivers clap their hands. Let the hills sing for joy together before the Lord, for he comes to judge the earth. He will judge the world with righteousness and the peoples with equity. I want to invite you to stand if you are able and join in singing a song of praise. Let's lift our voices, focusing on the marvelous things that God has done in each of our lives and in the lives of the church. Perhaps there's an area of your life that you are waiting on God for. I encourage you to bring it to him in worship, trusting his track record and placing your hope in his promises. Thank you.
Hey, my name's Dan Baptist and I'm lead pastor here at Jubilee Community Church. We really hope that something from this morning's word has blessed you and reached you. And if you'd like to talk about anything you've heard, or just be able to talk about maybe faith or get some prayer, then please get in contact. You can email us, give us a call at the centre, and one of the team's going to get back to you. We'd love to do this, especially if you're just thinking about what it is to become a Christian. You want to sit down and really talk that through with anyone. We also run regularly on a Sunday some joining the church courses. And if you want to know more about Jubilee Community Church and what it is to belong here, then you can just find out online when the next one of those is going on, and you can attend, have a meal, sit down, talk about it. We also have some amazing midweek group life where it's a great opportunity to dig further into your faith. Again, you can find out that on our website too. Anyway, just wanted to say hi and bless you, and we'll catch up soon.